Hi, in this video, I'm going to go in my backyard and cut up a brain for you. So let's go. Okay, so here I am in the backyard. I am going to show you a couple of the tools you got and how to get started. So first, you have your brain right over here, and then you got your tools, your scalpel, a couple of little pokers, nice pair of scissors, and then you have your labeling pins to stick in the brain, right? So for those labeling pins, you're going to want to use these little labels, right? And so you'll do something like cut them into little bits, and then tape them on that little pin. So it might be advantageous to just do them all at once, and then you'll have them for this time, plus they'll be useful for the next dissection, right? Or you can make your own labels. It doesn't really matter. So notice that when you get your brain right here, read the back of it. Right around here, there's some safety warnings. A couple things that you might want to consider here is to make sure you are wearing your goggles, because at any point that fluid in there, which is not terribly toxic, but it can be not good to get in your eyes if it's some flings up there, right? So you don't want some kind of glassware before you start using them. And so you're going to cut this package open, and I suggest just going over to your sink, your bathroom sink, cutting it open, draining it, and washing it out good, just because at this point, this has been sitting in some sort of preservative that actually kind of does stink. So the more you wash it out, then the better it is. So you'll want to wear some gloves. Again, not that it's terribly toxic, but it does tend to smell pretty bad, and it gets on your fingers and it's kind of hard to get off. All right, so this is the front of the brain you're looking at right here. And you got all these extra structures that are not part of the brain, like right here, right here. These are going to be part of, part of the surroundings, the tissue surrounding the eye. And then you also have part of the nose, right? And so what this is, once you start feeling it, you'll be able to feel the texture of it, and you'll see it's actually part of that nasal conchi, right? The inside the sheep's nose there, right? So there are the nasal cavity things, and again, you could feel the structure of them right there. And on the side, these would be part of where some of the eye muscles as well as the optic nerve is going to be attached around right there. So we're going to remove all these pieces first, right? And one thing we just want to pay attention to right here is you could see these structures right over here. These are the optic nerves, right? And they're going to be going into this tissue right here. So we're going to want to, when we do cut it, we're going to cut it out just to preserve these as much as possible. It's not a big deal. You probably cut them off a little bit, but these are the optic nerves coming in from this tissue right here. All right, so here we're looking at the underside of it, again, with these two big masses of tissue that are going to be surrounding the optic nerves. Right over here, right? So here's the optic nerve right around here. And so we're going to cut away that tissue around there and try to preserve it as best as possible. And so here is the optic nerve. You can see this is all, remember, myelinated axons coming in. You can see the whiteness of it right there. So when you're done chopping away as best you can, you want to have a nice bucket ready to discard all the brain parts in, which you can throw away in the regular garbage right there. So there is the optic nerve coming in through here. The other one is buried within that tissue. So now I'm going to cut off the nasal conchi over here. Right, and I'm going to try not to cut off the olfactory bulb. Right, so here's that nasal conchi. You can barely see. Right, but now I've cut them off, and at this point, you could see these olfactory bulbs coming out of here, right? So these would be part of the cranial nerve number 1 that are going to supply the nasal cavity with those nerves. So here is the optic tract, that tract of white matter. It's going to go down and cross over. So here is the optic chiasm over here. Here, and then over here. Okay, then also notice in the middle before we remove the dura mater, over here right in the middle, at the bottom right here, you have the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. Over here. So here is the optic chiasm going up here, and here's the pituitary gland. And so this will be removed once we start tearing off the rest of the dura mater. So I want to kind of point that out now. And also remember that the optic nerves are cranial nerve number 2, but these cranial nerve number 1 are the olfactory nerves right over here. And if you looked at the human brain, what you're going to see are these little tiny strips. So sheeps and dogs and mice and stuff are much more interested in the environment of odor around them than we are. All right, so in the next video, I'm going to cut off the dura mater and do some slices and look at the structures inside the brain.